It's Saturday morning here and it's really cold out. Yeah, I'm doing the feeding this morning. Yeah, the temperature was somewhere around 10 and the wind was blowing, or the wind is blowing like crazy, drifting the snow all around that we had yesterday and today, and tonight's supposed to be really cold. But yeah, I'm always intrigued here whenever you do the feeding. You're putting fresh feed out. There you can see the cows lined up where I ran it out already. It wasn't real far yet, but yeah, it's maybe 100 feet here that I ran out so far. Then you see this whole stream of cows. They're kind of slowly making their way up through here, and cows that were laying down, some of them get up and come over. They're probably about 2/3 done milking here, so not all the cows are back up here yet. But yeah, there's one of our bulls, black and white one there. He's a red carrier. We don't use a lot of black and white bulls. Most of them that we do are red carriers. Once in a while, if we can find a good one that's not a red carrier, we'll breed to him too. But so far, everything's going well here on the farm. Hopefully it stays that way. Probably the biggest thing is keeping all the watering troughs thawed out, and the alley scrapers, keeping them going, which we've learned over the years what it takes mostly to keep them going, but every now and then you still do have trouble. I heard one man saying when it gets this cold, it's not a matter of if something is going to happen, or it's more of a matter of what all can happen. But yeah, so far it's going well. We'll keep hoping and praying for that. Our mixer, I'm not sure if I showed you this or not, but our mixer has a gearbox on it. It has a high and a low. We always put it in low when we're mixing it in the feed room, and then when we come up here and start running it out, we'll let it in low till we're about, maybe got about half of it ran out. Then we have to stop and change it into high. It's just a matter of pulling that lever forward. And yeah, we'll finish running the feed out. And talking about the cold weather, I wanted to say this yet. We always have to plan for extra time. It just seems like everything takes a little longer from getting your tractors going, and we always plug them in when it gets this cold, but getting them going, and just, yeah, something that takes an hour, you might as well figure on an hour and 10 or 15 minutes, because if you don't, you're gonna, yeah, if you don't figure on that, you'll end up having some problems and take longer than what you thought. These are alley scrapers. Yeah, that's about the speed they go. They don't move real fast. Probably the biggest thing we have trouble, we got to really watch when it gets really cold, is a couple things, but there's a reception pit down here at the end of the barn that has about a foot wide opening where it drops down into the reception pit. And it's right there at the end of the barn where the door is open, where the cows come in and out. So yeah, you got to really watch it. As it gets cold, really cold, if you have really cold for several days, the menorah starts getting really stiff. And yeah, you'll have some trouble with it dropping down in there. But if you only have a day or two, it usually keeps going pretty good. And we have started in really cold weather, we'll spread a little mixing salt. Yeah, I was saying about spreading a little mixing salt on the alleys. We have already 5-6 years ago, maybe 8 or 10 by now. My wife always says everything's twice as long ago as what I think. It probably is. 8 or 10 years ago, we had a spell where we had about 3 or 4 days. It was just brutal cold. It was getting down 8 and 10 below zero at night, and windy, and the highs were like in the single digits Fahrenheit during the day. And yeah, and then we were up here probably 3 or 4 times a day. We kept spreading a little mixing salt. You just take a bucket with a little cup and come up through the alley and just spread a little bit in the whole alley. And yeah, we kept everything going over that time. And the biggest thing is if they stop, the corner wheels where the cables run on will freeze tight. And yeah, you can have a real mess getting them going again if it quits whenever it's cold. And when it's bitter cold, I often like that time when it's really cold for a couple days in a row. I'll even get up in the middle of the night and come up and check and make sure everything ain't getting backed up too bad there where it drops into that reception pit. So Yeah, I wanted to show you this shed here on the end of the barn. I think I showed it from outside before, but we have two curtains on the end of the barn, both ends. The one is there, whatever that is, a couple feet above the doorway. It's probably 6 feet by close to 40 feet, at least 35 to 40 feet. And that when it gets colder, unless it gets below freezing, we let that open all the time, obviously. And then once it gets, say, like down to 10 or so at night, we'll bring it down, let it open maybe a foot at each end. But then, yeah, when it gets really cold and windy like this, we close them completely. But then there's one up at the top. You can see that light shadowing it out. It's probably 4 or 5 feet by maybe close to 20 feet, 15 or 20 feet. And we'll let that one open all the time, unless there's usually maybe a couple nights of winter we close that. Yeah, if you let that open when it gets down to 0 and blowing, you'll have a lot more trouble with freezing in here. But yeah, tonight most likely we'll probably close that one. We'll see once how cold it gets. Here's what I was talking about, where our manure drops down in the reception pit. And you can see over there, it's starting to, yeah, there where they're coming in on that crossover, the manure is freezing. And they're on the alley a little bit, and then it starts getting piled up there. It don't drop down in the pit right. But once we're done milking and close that door where they're coming in and out, the doorway there, yeah, it'll be okay. The sun will soon be up here too. Even though it is cold, that all makes a big difference when you get all the doors shut. And we got close to 300 head in here, so that alone creates a lot of heat. We do have a ridge vent up at the top where, yeah, so it can still let heat out the top. That's pretty critical in a barn, any barn where you have cattle, if you're supposed to try to keep letting the stale air escape. I got a cow here that has milk fever. She looks pretty tough right now, but she should come out okay. We're in the middle of giving her IV here. Yeah, I guess one of my, here, I'll show you the IV bottle up here. You can see it bubbling down. And I always give it to them in the one blood vein under their stomach, which is called the milk vein. It's really easy to find. You can give it to them in the blood vein in their neck too, but especially when they're laying out like this cow is. She's, when they get a milk fever, it's either right about the time they freshen or right after they freshen or within a couple days of when they freshen. Normally their calcium level gets pulled way down over the time they have their calf. As far as the milk fever here, over the time they have their calf, their calcium level gets pulled way down from having the calf, and sometimes it gets depleted enough that they start going into like a coma almost. It'd be like a person with really low sugar. And usually if you give them this, it's 23% calcium, it's called. It's is what we give them, and you give it to them IV. You have to give it to them in the blood vein. Please give them 2 bottles and give it to them in the blood vein. You have to give it to them in the blood vein, or that's the quickest way to have a response from it. And yeah, I just checked them here probably 3-4 hours ago, and there was nothing wrong with any of them then. So yeah, this can come on them pretty quick, and sometimes if it comes on them and they go into a coma, if they're in a coma too long, they can actually die from it. Yeah, if it's yeah, it's just like a person with their sugar drops. If you don't get them help before long, they can have other issues from it too. But or I say when they're like a person when their sugar drops, it's a little different than that, but it's the same type of going into a coma like that, or kind of passing out like a person would when their sugar drops. So yeah, anyway, we'll give her this, and usually within a short amount of time they'll be getting back up. I'll try to set her up whenever I'm done here. We'll see once. Sometimes it takes a little bit till they're even back with it enough to even sit up, and if I can get her sitting up, I'll let her go here for about an hour. or so, and then I'll come back and try to get her up. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes you wonder if it's good to share stuff like this on social media, but part of why I wanted to start this channel is not just to share what we do on the farm, but to present to the public of what farming's really about, and that we do care about our cattle and take care of them. And so yeah, we do the best for them. This is just nature. We can either do it ourselves and spend $10 on 2 bottles of medicine, or you can call a vet and spend $150 and do the same thing. So yeah, I learned to do this, oh man, years ago when I was a teenager, and it's not something that happens real often. It's usually older cows that have trouble. This cow here would be calving with her 5th or 6th calf. So yeah, it's usually older cows, and when it does happen, and it don't happen to all older cows, we might have 4 to 6 a year maybe if they get this. It's nothing real common. I had one about a month or so ago. She had twins actually and had it, and she's doing fine now. So but yeah, she's actually, I might try to flip this around here, she's actually starting to get more alert now and realizing something's going on here. Yeah, I pulled the needle out, and you always want to rub it good there a little bit to keep it from bleeding. That's one thing with doing it under the stomach here on the blood vein that goes to the udder. They call it the milk vein because it's a blood vein that supplies the blood to the udder. Yeah, for those of you that are on dairy farms would know this, but if there's anybody watching that's not, you can kind of see the blood vein running right here. It's like a big vein that runs clear back into the udder. There's usually 2 or 3 of them underneath their stomach, one on either side. Usually just 2 actually. And yeah, oh yeah, so she's gonna, oh, what the world, she's sitting up all by herself. I didn't even have to help her. She came out of it enough to sit back up by herself. And like I said, we'll let her go here for a little while, and my dad always called it giving them time to get their bearings back. Not only do they need to get their strength back, but yeah, when they're in a comatose state like that, they kind of get disoriented, and yeah, they're still probably weak enough that she wouldn't be able to get up. But yeah, usually when they're in a coma as bad as she was, they don't snap out of it and sit right back up. And you can see her steaming there a little bit. It's only because she was laying out flat, and oh, it's really cold out today. So whenever she sat up, where she was laying down against a bedded pack is steaming there. It's not that she's sweating or anything like that. But anyhow, we'll give her some time. If I come back here and check her later, I'll try to get a little more video of her then. There she's getting up. She's still just a little bit shaky and wobbly, but yeah, she'll be okay. It'll take her probably another hour. She'll snap completely out of it. She's fine though now, but you can see if you look there close, she's really quivering and shaking. That's kind of normal when they're coming out of a milk fever situation like that. But yeah, that was less than an hour ago. She was laying out flat and in a coma, and wouldn't even hardly respond to you when you bumped her or anything. So it's pretty neat how quick they snap out of it. Springer pen, checking our springers here this morning. One time I'd mentioned about that we do bed with straw in here once in a while when it gets really cold, and we bedded down with straw yesterday afternoon. There's 2 calves here that were born. They both seem nice and cozy. So yeah, and there's the cow that had the milk fever yesterday that I had to give the IV. She's still doing okay. So yeah, it's not nice when you have milk or have one that gets milk fever like that, but it's probably one of the easiest things to treat that you get if you catch them. Feeding our dry cows and bred heifers whey. Yeah, it's been pretty cold here the last several days. This morning we had 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and there wasn't any wind blowing though. Yeah, we've been able to keep this tank open. Once in a while it'll freeze, but we put a heat tape, kind of wrap it around the valve there. And they had actually just brought some whey Saturday. Yes, it was about half empty, so that the whey's usually warm when it comes, so that helps some too. But it's cold now. There's but yeah, that definitely helps. But yeah, with that heat tape around the valve, we can usually keep it flowing pretty good. You can see there's a couple chunks of ice on here. And yeah, if you can see it there, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's kind of, it never freezes solid. It gets, I mean, it freezes, but it's more like a slushy freeze. So that helps too. But on the valves, when it does get cold enough, they'll stick. I was up at our other heifer barn there earlier, and there's not a heat tape on that one, and it's stuck, or it's froze right now. Tomorrow they're saying it's supposed to hit close to 40, so it'll probably start flowing again then. I was able to fill it up Saturday, I believe, so the tank, or the trough's pretty much empty, but hopefully we'll be able to get them some more whey tomorrow. This don't happen real often, but every now and then it does. A couple times a year. We got a cow down in here in the pit where we normally stand. Right here's two pipes we slip through, and every now and then a cow will come through, and yeah, sometimes they're too big to back out. Their hips catch when they try to back out. If they go through forward, they can usually go right out through. But yeah, we don't have that trouble very often. But yeah, once in a while you get a cow that's too big to back out, so you just got to step them down into the pit and turn them around and back them out.